Coming up on Network Africa, the World Health Organization and Africa Center for Disease Control officials launch new laboratory networks for more COVID-19 research. Kaduna State in northwestern Nigeria approves the castration of convicted rapists. Plus, Japanese transport company Mitsui Oaks Line to spend $9.4 million on Mauritius oil spill cleanup. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Layo Adegoke. The World Health Organization and the Africa Centers for Disease Control have launched a new laboratory network that will reinforce genome sequencing of coronavirus in Africa. The initiative seeks to study the possible mutations of the virus in order to prepare better responses in public health. Experts from the WHO and Africa CDC believe that the move will help countries understand the different strains of the SARS-CoV-2 virus in order to improve the country's responses, treatments, or possible vaccines and make them more relevant to the continent's population. 12 specialized laboratories are expected to join the network in Africa.
I'd like to mention a very important development in our response to COVID-19, which is our launch today with the Africa CDC of a new network of laboratories in Africa that will work on genome sequencing of the SARS-CoV-2, the virus that causes COVID-19. This network will help us to track the evolution of the virus, to better develop vaccines and treatments tailored to African. So the idea is just that we in Africa need to form our own picture of what is the subtype of the virus that is predominantly circulating here. We need to know about transmission of the virus between African countries from studying the subtype of the virus. And I think this is an extremely good initiative, and we hope to grow this capacity in the African countries so that we can understand in more depth what we are facing in the pandemic.
Well, Kenya says it will participate in final clinical trials for a coronavirus vaccine being developed by AstraZeneca and Oxford University. Kenya will be the second African country to be involved in the trials that were suspended on Wednesday after a participant had a suspected adverse reaction in the UK. Already, more than 1,000 participants have been enrolled in South Africa for the trials. Well, in Kenya, at least 400 healthcare workers will take part in the trials that will be conducted in two coastal towns of Mombasa and Kilifi. These two towns in April were classified as coronavirus hotspots by the Kenyan government. The AstraZeneca Oxford University vaccine candidate is among 9 other vaccine trials being tried in larger groups globally. Kenya's decision to close schools until January because of the coronavirus outbreak has left many private schools struggling to survive. At Roka Preparatory School in central Kenya, the sound of children in classrooms has been replaced with clucking chickens, with the playground now a vegetable plot. James Kungu, who founded the school 23 years ago, says he had to turn to farming to survive this difficult period.
Rows of spinach sprouts in the sports fields where the students of Roka Preparatory School once played football, and clucking chickens fluff their feathers in sawdust-covered classrooms where children once sweated over their exams. No students have thundered down these eerily quiet corridors since March, when Kenya abruptly closed its schools 3 days after the first case of COVID-19 was detected. The loss of income means some private schools will shut permanently.
Corona came as a shock to everybody, me included. And because it has stopped us from carrying on with our daily routines, teaching in the classrooms, and getting a revenue from the children. And all at once we are told, home you go, and we went.
The Kenya Private Schools Association says Kenya's 11,400 private primary and secondary schools serve about 2.6 million students. While some schools have been able to oversee distance learning, in others, the pupils and the teachers have no way to connect to the internet. They have to look for creative ways to make money. But Kungu says turning to farming means Roka, which had 530 pupils in March, will not close. He says to date, the school had lost at least 20 million shillings in school fees, but was still paying partial salaries to teachers. The school's head teacher, Moses Wandara, is currently working in the farm.
Personally, I think it's a good project that even after the pandemic is over, is a project that I would wish to continue with it as a side hustle other than just the main employment.
I had to think how to use the classrooms because they were haunting most of the times. When you wake up in the morning and you hear the empty classes looking at you, it's an investment, very discouraging. And quickly I thought of occupying the classrooms. And the idea that came first was to keep chicken in the classrooms.
Schools are expected to stay closed until at least January. Kenya's Education Ministry says they can only reopen when the number of COVID-19 cases drops substantially.
Well, over in Senegal, the army says about 100 of its soldiers from the peacekeeping mission in the Gambia have tested positive for coronavirus. The military contingent, which composes of 600 soldiers, were returning home. They have now been quarantined in Toubacouta on Senegalese territory near the border with the Gambia as a precautionary measure. The peacekeeping mission in the Gambia, deployed by regional bloc ECOWAS in 2012, mainly consists of Senegalese soldiers. It was deployed to force former Gambian President Yahya Jammeh to hand over power to his elected successor Adama Barrow and to assist the new Gambian administration to address the security challenges in the country. The mission's mandate was extended during the last ECOWAS meeting at the request of President Barrow. Well, the COVID-19 pandemic has led to a devastating global impact. The bid to contain the spread of the coronavirus disease has led to lockdowns and travel restrictions across the globe. As the saying goes, there's strength in numbers, and that's one of the reasons why the Congolese diaspora in Dubai is seeking more integration in the African community.
Harsh realities brought on by the COVID-19 pandemic, particularly on Africans in the Middle East, have caused an awakening among some community leaders. Perhaps more than ever before, there are talks of closing the gaps between different African diaspora groups, finding strength in numbers, and ensuring the welfare of Africans.
I want to bring the change for African people, because today one African people, the mistake he can make, it can cost all African people. Just why for my idea, I try to, even to my diaspora, to try to put everybody together. But for my vision, I want to put all Africa together, because today if we're gonna be together, we're gonna try to make, we can change the story for Africa.
Dubai-based Congolese businessman Eric Mandala is leading his community to begin the mission of bridge building. Long before the pandemic, others have made similar efforts with platforms such as the UAE Africa Networking Group and the African Food Festival UAE.
The challenge is we are still very segmented, right? So even when you go in countries, we're still very segmented, and let alone when you start to expand it out. And I think that's why I started to get really heavily involved in the UAE Africa Networking Group, and in terms of what they see as a holistic vision of Africa, where it's about how do we do more regardless of whether it's north, south, east, or west. It's also aligned with the vision of UAE Africa. It's also aligned with the vision of the African Food Festival, but there's still a lot to do. So from a community perspective, have we realized there's a need for us to be more joint? Yes. Have we started making strides in terms of heading in that direction? Absolutely. I think we acknowledge the strides we're making, but we also have to acknowledge that there's still a wider gap in terms of us really honing together as a community.
African businesses have also taken a hit, propelling many to begin strategic partnerships in order to stay afloat.
Started the Collabinar as a way for African businesses and SMEs to come together, collaborate, provide an informal, informational webinar on their product or services. And so far, it's been a real success. It's been one of our best programs. We've enjoyed, our members have enjoyed a 20% conversion rate. Some of our African SMEs have not had any business, and because they actually took part in one of our Collabinars, they've actually converted business when things were really, really bad. So it's been really fantastic for our partners.
Pandemic really changed so many things. Today we have to look at the way we are going, not where we come from. So Africans, for me, I will call Africans to be together. Let's stand together. We left our country very far. We are in new land. In where we are now, the only way we can go through it is when we are together.
As various sectors of the Middle East economy create new strategies to cope with the post-COVID reality, groups hard hit by the pandemic will do well to find new ways to solve old problems. From Dubai in the United Arab Emirates, Mayowa Adegoke for Channels Television News.
Once one of the largest exporters of wine to Europe, Algeria is trying to revive its historic production of the alcoholic drink and support local producers. In the Algerian countryside, farmers can be seen filling large crates with juicy red and green grapes, later to be fermented into wine at a nearby factory.
In the Algerian countryside, farmers can be seen filling large crates with juicy red and green grapes, later to be fermented into wine at a nearby factory. Algeria country is trying to revive its historic production of the alcoholic drink and support local producers.
Here in Algeria, we used to be among the world's premier wine exporters. We used to produce about 22 million hectoliters during the 40s, 50s, and 60s. But now, we've lost the market.
The winery and vineyard are located in Sidi Bel Abbès province in western Algeria, once a center of the industry, being a stronghold of the armed Islamists during the country's decade-long war in the 1990s, when production in Sidi Bel Abbès came to a near halt. But the businessman who owns the Spavi Wine Company with his brother said they're working hard to recapture the market.
We want to revive it, but we need help from the government to plant the grapes. We can't keep up with the demand. We have the local market and the external market to think of.
The company, which was founded in 2004, uses around 40 old cellars for creating their wines, which they believe produce a unique quality of the drink.
The old traditional wine are better than the new ones. The new ones leak. This one has been used since 1939 and is still in good condition.
In July, the government said that Algeria's economy contracted 3.9% in the first quarter this year, after a 1.3% growth in the same period in 2019, weakened by the coronavirus lockdown and a bad performance by the vital oil and gas sector. Growth in almost all sectors has been weakened since the authorities imposed a lockdown earlier this year aimed at curbing the spread of the coronavirus. The government says that a new social and economic revival plan is due to be announced next month.
Still to come on Network Africa. Promoting literacy in indigenous African languages is the highlight at this week's 2020 International Literacy Day in South Africa. We'll give you more details in a moment. Please stay with us. Welcome back to the program. The rise in cases of rape and gender-based violence across Nigeria is a cause for concern to lawmakers in Kaduna State House of Assembly, and they have approved castration as punishment for anybody convicted for rape in the state. The spokesperson of the House, Musa Ahmed, told Channels Television that the new law entails 21 years imprisonment in a case involving an adult and life in prison for the rape of a minor. During a recent public hearing on the bill seeking the amendment of the Penal Code last month, the wife of the Kaduna State Governor, Umi El-Rufai, proposed either castration or death sentence for rapists, describing the act as a gross violation of the rights of women and children. Mrs. El-Rufai also expressed concern that an average of 5 rape cases, especially minors, are recorded in Kaduna State on a daily basis. The governor's wife noted that only severe penalties for rapists in the state penal code will serve as a deterrent to others. A South African entrepreneur has set up a women-only taxi company to protect women from violence in public transport and other taxi-hailing companies. 18-year-old Asife Mkefa says that taxis had become a dangerous place for women, hence her quest to ensure safe travels. According to her, 35% of gender-based violence comes from women being killed in public transport and e-hailing services. There has been a lot of stories of women being murdered in taxis in South Africa. Ms. Mkefa said the taxi-hailing app was still being developed, but an SMS service is in use, and she has got male citizens that are very concerned and are supportive of the initiative. Meanwhile, South Africa's cabinet has welcomed the removal of a hair advert that has been condemned as racist from the website of beauty company Clicks. According to a statement, the cabinet said it considers the advertisement profoundly offensive and racist. The advert had pictures of African hair labeled dry, dull, and damaged, while an example of white hair was described as fine and flat. Clicks company has since apologized and pulled the advert from its digital platforms and removed Tresemme products from its shelves. The retailer also says it will increase its support for local beauty, hair care brands and other products. Well, Japan's transport company Mitsui Ox Line says it would spend about 1 billion yen, that's about $9.42 million, on measures to help Mauritius, including the cleanup of the island's mangrove forests and contribution to an environmental recovery fund. Mitsui Osk President Junichiro Ikeda told a news conference that the accident has significantly impacted the environment and people's lives in Mauritius, and in such an accident, it is natural as the charter of the ship to bear the social responsibility. A bulk carrier owned by Japan's Nagashiki Shipping and chartered by Mitsui Osk ran aground on a reef in Mauritius on July 25th and later began leaking oil, causing a marine ecological disaster around the Indian Ocean island. Mitsui plans to contribute about 800 million yen over several years to establish a Mauritius Natural Environment Recovery Fund and another 100 million yen to several local NGOs and funds established by public agencies such as Mauritius government and the United Nations. Promoting literacy in indigenous African languages, and reducing illiteracy were some of the points highlighted at the 2020 International Literacy Day in South Africa this week. The global theme was literacy, teaching and learning in the COVID-19 crisis and beyond. And South Africa's sub-theme was Give, Buy and Read a Book. Our South Africa Bureau Chief Betty Dibia was at the celebration event hosted at the National Library of South Africa in Pretoria, the nation's capital.
The 2020 International Literacy Day focuses on literacy teaching and learning in the COVID-19 crisis and beyond. But the contribution of speakers present highlighted several other areas literacy can be promoted in Africa.
Eradicating illiteracy is also about ensuring that people read and continue to read throughout their lives, making meaning through reading. But it is a culture of reading that necessitates that readers become writers so that we tell our own stories.
We always focus on illiteracy, but there is a very important point that I want to bring to the attention of the audience, that you have people who are able to read, but they are lazy to read. And those we call them illiterate. Those who can read, let's go and buy books. Those who cannot afford to buy books, our libraries offers access to books free of charge.
Then there's the issue of promoting reading and writing in African indigenous languages. The acting chief executive of South Africa's National Heritage Council, Ms. Louise Mabe, called for curriculum change in schools to promote the continent's rich heritage.
We are hoping that in African languages, there will also be some writings on COVID-19. We shouldn't see them only in English or Afrikaans, but there will be books that will give a perspective of how, as Africans, we encountered and we fought to stay alive during COVID and how it impacted on our lives. 1,
0. And bringing that COVID story to the space of the children, 2 qualified teachers, Thokozani Diosini, a PhD candidate, and South Africa's Miss Essay for 2016, Ntandoye Nkosi Kunene, presented Cory in the Universe, a book expected to hit the bookstands next month in South Africa's 11 official languages and probably a 12th.
We've always had the interest of writing children's storybooks, and so when COVID-19 happened, when lockdown happened, we just merely adjusted the storyline, we adjusted the characters so that it fits with the pandemic, because we both just believe there's been such a high-level conversation around COVID-19 and we didn't have anything for children.
Growing up, we didn't have many stories in our indigenous languages and have characters that looked exactly like us, our skin tones, our hair, our pigmentation. So this is just a great body of work that speaks to the diversity, multicultural and multilingual South Africa, because the book is available in all 11 South African languages.
Okay, you've been challenged for a 12th, an audio book. Do we see that coming?
Yes, it's definitely coming up. It is something we have been talking about, and because we are pushing inclusivity the whole time, so that's our next project, where we want to make an audio book. I mean, even yesterday we were speaking to one of our sign language interpreters, and so we also want to move into making sure that kids, that it can be signed.
The Department of Sports, Arts and Culture also distributed over 4,000 books to different book clubs from several townships. From the National Library of South Africa, Pretoria, Betty Dibia, Channels Television News.
And it's Happy New Year in Ethiopia as citizens celebrate the beginning of year 2013 according to their Ethiopian calendar. In his New Year's Eve address, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed said Ethiopians were hopeful for a better year. President Sahle-Work Zewde called on all Ethiopians to continue their support to successfully realize the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. In her New Year message, the president said that the nation was able to successfully accomplish the first round filling of the dam in the new year by overcoming the enormous diplomatic influences. Meanwhile, police in the country banned fireworks during Friday's New Year celebrations, citing a terror threat. The police spokesperson said they had intelligence that some individuals were planning to carry out an attack under the cover of fireworks. The Ethiopian New Year holiday is known as Enku-Tatash. I guess it's Happy New Year to all Ethiopians around the world. And that's Network Africa for today and the week. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Layo Adegoke.